We've already talked about the Process Enneagram 101, which is just literally the sequence going from current state of an issue to what we want to achieve, intentions, how we need to operate differently to achieve those intentions. That's called principles. From principles, we go to the deeper causes of what's keeping us stuck on this particular issue. Those are called tensions. Once we reveal the deeper causes, we'll have a shift in mindset. And that new shift in mindset generates new strategies, which then go into action plan. And then we evaluate, monitor, and tweak our plan. And in many cases, based on what we're learning, we have to go back to intentions. We have to question our intentions, our values, and our goals. It's a linear sequence. I'm going to use these geo sticks to once again, we're going to call this the Process Enneagram 202. I'm going to use these geo sticks, which are kids' toys, to again indicate the linear nature. That's the thing to first learn how to really use the Enneagram. Is it's simpler to think of it as linear. So in these geo sticks, let's say we've already taken on an issue that we know the current state. So what's the first thing we want to explore if we already know the current state? We want to say, what are we trying to achieve? Intentions. So intentions, imagine intentions are at the top of this geo stick. We go from intentions to the principles, which is that junction right there. So we say in that step of the conversation, we're talking about what are the standards of practice that we're going to consistently apply, how will we need to operate differently to achieve these intentions. The intentions is the talk, the principles is the walk. So a lot of times people say, you're not walking the talk. That's the relationship between intentions and principles. In the next junction, we go from principles to tensions. And the tensions are the underlying causes that keep our system stuck. From the tensions, we have a breakthrough in thinking. We end up seeing from a new perspective. That's the goal. And we see from that new perspective down here, the mindset will develop new mindset, new perspective, and therefore new strategies, broad strategies. From the broad strategies piece, which is right here, we then go to the work plan, down to this end of this same geo stick. And we talk about what are the steps, the action steps and timelines and people responsible for each of the broad strategies. And from there, we go down to the deep learning and reflection. We want to reflect on as we're implementing these steps, which have been generated through this whole sequence of conversations. We want to find out what we need to monitor, evaluate, and tweak. Sometimes we need to tweak the work steps. Sometimes what we find out is, boy, we have a really different perspective and set of beliefs and viewpoints by the time we've got to this point in the conversation. And we need to go all the way back down to our starting point, which was intentions. So I've gone ahead and written up the diagram of the Process Enneagram with the different points of the Enneagram arrayed around this circle. And I want to show you how this same linear sequence transcribes directly onto this sequence that's on this diagram. We already know the current state. And I've also said that at every step of the conversation, we want to build relationships. We want to build more information. These 3 points of the Process Enneagram, 3 of the 9, are actually unattached, as you'll see, to the other points. They're like legs that are going back into the wall. They're the legs of this tabletop. And they are the below the green line components, which we've talked about in many other blogs and videos. The strength of these 3 allow you to take on tougher and tougher issues. So they're critical. They're the infrastructure of every conversation. But now, let's take this same sequence. So what did we say in 202? We said we go from intentions to principles. And from principles, same linear order, we go to tension point. And from the tension point, we said we go over to new mindsets and strategies, which is way over on the left side of the Enneagram. Sorry, this is a little bit cumbersome. And from new mindset and strategies, we said we go down to the work plan, which you can see I'm still building each step in a linear way. Nothing has changed about the order of these geosticks. From the work, we go up to deep learning to reflect. And from the deep learning, we go all the way back around to our starting point, or we may go back around, which is intentions. And so when you step back, you see, finally, the shape of the Enneagram, like you're going to see in the books and the flashcards and everything else I've done. But notice, I have not changed the sequence. If I take this away and pull this away, it's the same linear order. Nothing has been rearranged in terms of the order or sequence. It's just arrayed around this Enneagram. Now you may ask, why would we want to put it in that complicated order when it in actuality is just this simple linear order? And I wanted to discuss that with you just for a second. These points on the Enneagram, there's often things called wings. There's a relationship between parts of the Enneagram that you can't see in the linear order in the same way. So for example, you take these 3 points. The current state is where we are. We want to go to intentions. Why can't we get there? Tensions. These 3 points in sequence. We have relationship dynamics, which underlying those are the tensions, and the solutions to those tensions are principles. So in this format, you can see relationships that you can't see in the linear format. So that's really significant. So 3 other quick points about the Process Enneagram. You could spend days talking about the Process Enneagram, but to make this description of the simple Enneagram complete, it's a couple points. First point, imagine that we could draw a line through the middle of this circle. So half of the Enneagram is on the right side, the other half is on the left side. These 3 points aren't even in the plane of the Enneagram. They're the legs for the tabletop. So it's important for a new person using the Enneagram to realize that about 80% of your time is going to be spent on the right side, the conversation. That's the critical part where you're going to ultimately get breakthroughs in thinking and perspective. And 20% will be spent on strategy development. This is the side that creates the new insights that will also create consensus about what you need to do on strategy and the work plan. So don't be afraid that you're spending a lot of time. Let people know that the first part of the conversation, where we need to be most creative, will take the most amount of time. So that's point 1. Point 2 is that the Enneagram is really powerful in that you notice that at each point there are arrows that point the direction of the flow. From intention to principles, there's an arrow, and then from principles to tensions, there are arrows. So the second point is, to diagnose a problem, follow the arrows backwards. So you typically start working in a group. You say, well, where do you think you are? Well, they'll typically say, we're over here on strategies. You want to actually see if they're at that point. You ask them the famous Dr. Phil question, how's that working for you? And they go, not so well. You follow the arrow backwards to tensions. Did they develop a deeper sense of what the underlying causes are? They typically go, well, no, we didn't even talk about that. You follow the arrow backwards. Did they develop a set of agreements about how they're going to have to operate differently? Maybe they have. And if they convinced you that they have a good set of agreements, then you pick up from principles and start their work moving forwards. So to diagnose, you follow the arrows backwards until you see where their true stuck point is. To design, you follow the arrows forwards from whatever place they're actually at. Okay, so there you go. We've gone through the Enneagram in the simple sequence, the Enneagram 101 model, which is just the critical to remember, follow the sequence, trust the sequence. You'll be so much more successful in all of your work if you trust that sequence. And that sequence is very different than how we normally approach. Normally we approach work, we started either at the problem, what's the problem, which is normally an effect or a symptom, and we try to fix it, and that's why it doesn't work. Or sometimes we started all the way over at strategy or work. There's no conversation about how we need to be different, about what we're trying to achieve. There's no alignment around that. So follow the sequence. That's the most important thing. If you'll just do that, you don't have to worry about the Enneagram 202 or Enneagram 303 that we did go through in this videotape. But just start simple, and that's the key. And you know that the Enneagram can be used as a journey map, which is how I'm presenting it now, or it can actually be used as a sequence of 9 windows on a conversation by asking a question at each level. And you can have a whole plan in one session. But that takes a high-functioning team to do that kind of work. So I hope this has been useful for you. We'll see you again soon.